That's fun. Three topics, 60 minutes covering the biggest news in the ECHL. This is the Three Periods Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Matthew Will and Matthew Harding.
And welcome into the first Three Periods Podcast of the 2021 offseason. I'm Matthew Will, joined by Matthew Harding. We're very excited to get back started with you. Matthew, how has the offseason been for you so far?
Busy. You? You're a little bit busier than I am these days.
Yeah, between a couple of jobs and getting ready for a baseball tournament and a move, it's been a little hectic.
Yeah. You are you're firing on all 12 cylinders. It has been busy because we've made the move now from the sin bin to field pass, but that's for a different podcast. But it's been busy, good busy, and
it kind of seems like, especially here in this last 2 or 3 weeks, every day something's breaking out in the world of hockey, whether it's been to reveal lineups or the incredible couple weeks they've had in the NHL between the expansion draft and free agency just this week. Mm-hmm. It's hard to look at your phone and not see hockey news, and it's getting really exciting to get a little bit closer to the season.
It is. When COVID happened and everybody was thinking of when the season would end, it was kind of hard to think, man, are we going to be in the middle of summer and talking about free agency? Like, how weird is that going to be? But I mean, it's actually been refreshing with as hot as it's been outside to watch all these big names go everywhere and all of this money spent and kind of get jazzed up for hockey season, which is now under 3 months away. And it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you can't take a break or else you're going to miss something. So yeah. Obviously the only way to start something like this is to congratulate Fort Wayne on the title of this year's 2021 Kelly Cup champions. Mm-hmm. A lot of controversy surrounding that. Obviously, with them playing a shorter schedule, there's a ton of people out there who have a certain opinion on whether this one means just as much as the rest of them. And I'm not going to say anything. I think I'd rather have you say your exact words on what this really means for Fort Wayne.
Well, I think, first of all, congratulations to Ben Boudreau and that entire team. You and I talked about this when we covered the Wichita-Fort Wayne series, and I think we felt that the winner of the West would be the team who wins the Kelly Cup championship. As it's played out over the last several years, the teams in the Western Conference are just so much more physical than the teams in the East, and that was borne out over a pretty rugged 5-game series there between the Fort Wayne Komets and South Carolina Stingrays. That said, it doesn't matter to me whether you play 40, 50, 60, or 125 regular season games. It matters what you do when you put the X beside your name. We can go through the roster and we can say it was probably a disappointing season for Allen. It was a reasonable season for Wichita. You can have all the teams in the East that you can talk about, but I think, for Fort Wayne to be on the road for 3 weeks prior to their playoff series, go into incredibly hostile territory in Wichita and win at least one of those games, then they go home and you and I aren't going to lie about this. The Komets had the benefit of home ice advantage in each of those 3 series. To have game 4 and game 5 on your ice in that series is huge, especially in a 5-game scenario. So they were able to capitalize. They've been strong on home ice all year. Again, it doesn't really matter whether you play 40, 50, or 125 games. The rest of the league had a 72-game schedule that was spread out over 6 months. Fort Wayne had a 50-game schedule in about 3 months. So they were playing a ton of hockey, and they had been really banged up. And at the end of the day, they won the war of attrition. So you have to give it to them. You have to give them their just due. Congratulations to everybody in the Comets organization, a well-deserved honor. And now you get to go defend it against a 26-team ECHL, 27-team ECHL rather, beginning in about 90 days.
And that's a good segue. We get to welcome in Trois Rivières and Iowa into the league this year. First, Trois Rivières starts their free agency by signing 5 French Canadians on day one. Alexis Diaust, he spent time with Jacksonville and Manitoba and Charlotte 2 years ago. Then you got GM Boudoir, who spent the year in France last year. Oliver Archambault, who spent the year in Allen a couple years ago and was well over a point a game. Matthew Brodeur, who was in Fort Wayne last year, and Matthew Gagnon, who was in Wichita. All those guys head over to Trois Rivières to really kickstart what could be a really exciting year of hockey up there in Canada.
Yeah, and they added 3 more here in the last 10 days. So now all 8 players that they have signed are Quebec natives. They are going to have the market cornered on Quebec players here going forward. Good luck getting into that hockey hotbed if you're a recruiter. That's going to be a huge deal for Trois Rivières. And you and I watched Matthew Brodeur here during the playoff series. We got to watch Matthew Gagnon. I've watched Olivier Archambault. That is going to be a really talented team. And then throw in a few Montreal prospects as well. That Trois Rivières team is going to be fun to watch from the hop.
And they're going to make life hard in the North, because I expect they'll likely be in the North Division.
Yep.
They're going to make it hard and almost make the path to the North Division have to go through there. I think it's going to be really unique to see that community surround that team, and obviously having that many hometown guys has got to help there. Worth asking as well, they go with the Lions name, and the logo looks kind of like that typical French symbol. What are your thoughts on both the logo and the team name?
I love it. The Lions goes back to I think back into the mid 1950s when they had another pro team in that area as well. It's a great name and steeped in history, and that's a really hockey rich market. So it's good that they went back to that. And like I said, good luck to everybody up there. That is going to be one impressive area to watch a hockey game. I can't wait to go.
And then we also get to add in Iowa, the Heartlanders. They're in Coralville. They'll join the Central Division. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we mentioned tonight was that they announced that they're going to be hosting an AHL exhibition between their affiliate, the Iowa Wild, and the Rockford Ice Hogs on October 8th. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this, because I think this is a really cool opportunity that more ECHL teams should try to do. What are your thoughts on maybe more teams trying to host their own affiliates for an exhibition?
If it works travel-wise, you would be a fool not to do it. If you look at those affiliates with close approximations, it doesn't work out nearly as much in the Western Conference out where we are as it does in the East. But if it works, do it. And even if it doesn't, like, even if you wanted to split up training camp or something like that, have 3 days in Wichita and have like 4 days in Bakersfield or whatever, then make it happen. That's a good way for the American Hockey League affiliate to scratch the ECHL's back, and for the ECHL fan base to come out and show the American Hockey League and show the team that is putting money into the ECHL organization that their money is put in the right spot, because they're there watching an exhibition game, for crying out loud. So I think you will see more teams do this. Great innovative thought by the Heartlanders staff, and I can't wait to talk to David Fine and talk about the vibe in that area and everything else coming up here a little later in the show. But I think that this is going to be a really good proving ground to see what happens moving forward with the Heartlanders and the relationship that they have with not only the Quad City Storm off to their east in Moline, but with the Iowa Wild and Minnesota Wild off to their west and north.
And you've got to think Minnesota is ecstatic for something like that, to have all three of those almost work as affiliates for them. Obviously, 2 signed on, but then to have Quad City as a potential even further down proving ground is going to be really unique to see how Minnesota and Iowa and the AHL kind of work together to use that full system. Should be entertaining.
Yeah, and it's early in the show for this, but it's time for Maddie's stat of the show. The distance from Quad City in Moline, Illinois to Iowa is 173 miles both ways. So they could literally brand that as a hockey highway.
I love it. And
That
it's
makes perfect sense.
You've got the entire affiliation chain there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes absolute sense. So yeah, good that area. And don't forget the USHL is centered in that area as well. Like that's Iowa. We think of Canada as a hockey hotbed, but man, don't look now, folks, but in the United States, Iowa is becoming that hockey hotbed. You have the USHL there, the SPHL in the Quad Cities. Now you have the ECHL and American Hockey League, and another 3-4 hours up the road, you have an NHL team sitting there in St. Paul.
Makes for a very entertaining lifestyle if you're a hockey fan. You can kind of follow the whole thing.
You'll never be without hockey.
Oh, no way. Almost every night of the week.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that not the dream?
I'm moving to Iowa. Come on, I'm gonna go work with Feiner in Iowa. See y'all later.
We'll see what he says about that here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's you know what, that's probably gonna be a big old thumbs down from Feiner.
Also worth noting here, just in the last couple of hours, Mason Baptista announced his retirement. Obviously, a guy that here in Wichita we know. He spent over 290 games in the ECHL and scored 187 points. Spent time with Quad City when they were still in the ECHL, with Wichita, 3 seasons with Fort Wayne before he went overseas for half a year, came back to Fort Wayne, and then spent time with Greenville and Rapid City before spending last year with the Macon Mayhem down in the SPHL. Of course, we wish him all the best. A guy who has really shown what it's all about to be a career ECHLer, a guy who knows what the ECHL is about and thrives in the system. It's exciting to see players like that know that maybe that's where they belong, that maybe they don't have a chance to move up any, and really live that to the full potential. And I think Mason Baptista did that.
Yeah. And, we got to watch him a little bit here in Wichita, or at least I did. This might have been before you started covering the Thunder with me, but, he really never fit into a mold here in Wichita. He was kind of his own player. You could put him in anywhere in the lineup and have, pretty decent success with him. And it was good to see a player like him find success on an absolutely loaded Macon Mayhem team last year and win the SPHL MVP award. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to cap off his career with a championship, but he's definitely one of the more unique guys in minor league hockey. He has a bright future as a head coach, and I echo your sentiments that we definitely wish him all the best.
Jacksonville head coach Jason Christie was announced today that he is joining the Buffalo Sabres staff as an assistant coach. Not often at all we see an ECHL coach make the jump all the way up. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's worth noting that he is the ECHL's winningest coach, and he'll leave the ECHL that way. He had a career record of 667, 479, and 134, made 11 postseason appearances, and had 45 wins in those 11 appearances. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on him, just because he's a guy that obviously all 4 years that Jacksonville's been in the ECHL, he's been their guy. They've started to become a little hotbed, having to compete with Orlando and South Carolina and Florida. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on him.
First of all, congratulations to the guy that they affectionately call Smurf. Don't ask me why. He just had that nickname. And so, but anyway, congratulations to Coach Christie. Had a great deal of success early on in his career, and he and Don Granato won the Kelly Cup championship in 2000 with Peoria. They're now reunited in Buffalo, which is a first AHL team, but we can talk about that later. I will say this about Jason Christie. Great regular season coach. Obviously, if you have 667 wins and over 1,200 games coached, that's an impressive resume. He's not been to the finals since 2008 and has missed the Kelly Cup playoffs in 4 of the last 5 full seasons behind the bench. There have been, I think, 27 or 28 coaches who have won the Kelly Cup. And if you were to ask me to put a Mount Rushmore of coaches together, Jason Christie wouldn't be on that Mount Rushmore, despite what the stats say. Surefire Hall of Famer, absolutely. He's the winningest coach in league history. That's probably a record nobody will ever touch. But I struggle putting him as one of the elite coaches in this league, in league history, simply because of the fact that he does not have a championship won behind the bench on his resume. If he had that, no matter when he has it, that vaults him up into that conversation. But great regular season coach, and he developed a ton of players. It's just, I can't put him there quite yet.
And obviously a frustrating year when you had South Carolina struggling for so much of the year, and you and Orlando were pretty much tossing haymakers back and forth for that fourth playoff spot, and then you both lose out on it. Obviously kind of hard to lose out that way. They should have been a playoff team this year. They looked like a playoff team in a lot of games this year, but it's a tough way to end his career there in Jacksonville.
Yeah. He was going to get another crack at it behind the bench there in Jacksonville. You're going to give a coach like that as much room as you can. They have a new affiliation now with the New York Rangers. So it'll be interesting to see if the Rangers help the Icemen find a coach in really short order. It's the first of August, and most of the time we're deep into the signing season here. So with this compressed clock, especially, having a coach like Jason Christie move on is going to be a pretty big hole in your organization. It'll be interesting to see what happens here with the Icemen moving forward. And definitely congratulations again to one of the best to ever do it here in the ECHL, Jason Christie.
Also happening here is it wasn't announced by either Maine or Philadelphia/Lehigh Valley, but there is reports that Maine head coach Riley Armstrong is joining the Lehigh Valley coaching staff as an assistant coach, and Ben Geit will take over there in Maine. Obviously, kind of something that maybe surprised some people with Maine not playing last year and him finally getting to start working on a new team, and then this happens out of nowhere. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on something that just kind of came out of nowhere on us.
Good for him. Anytime that you are able to move up in minor league hockey from the ECHL to the American Hockey League, or in Jason Christie's case, the ECHL to the National Hockey League, that's really great. And it says a lot about this league that they are able to develop coaches and players. So congratulations to him. He had Maine in position to win, to clinch their first Kelly Cup playoff berth when the COVID stoppage happened in 2019. It's unfortunate that they didn't play last year, but you understand why, given everything we were going through as a country at that time. Man, just everything I've heard about Riley Armstrong is that he's just a relentless worker. If there's a skill that he's not getting, he's going to figure out how to do it. If it's a system that he needs to get down, he's going to work tirelessly to figure it out. That's the kind of guy you want moving up in the coaching tree. Philadelphia and Lehigh Valley have a really good one. He has connections back to the Philadelphia organization. I believe his brother Colby Armstrong played there, at Armdog on Twitter, by the way. But I believe Colby played there once upon a time. So this is not foreign to them, but that is a really solid move by the Philadelphia organization to swipe up Riley Armstrong. Ben Geit takes over, a really good assistant coach for the Maine Black Bears. up there in the Northeast, and he just moves right down the road to Portland and takes over the ECHL Maine Mariners, and it sounds like they're going to get quite a bit of help as well from the Boston Bruins. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in their first year. If you have a coaching hire this late, it stands to reason that there may be a little bit of a delay in the new coach getting their players in versus and getting the old players out. We've seen that happen a few times. So I would urge the fan bases in Jacksonville and Maine to give their coaches a little bit more leeway than they might than they normally would because of those circumstances.
As we start to round out our first period of play, one of the big things that blindsided a lot of hockey fans, especially in the ECHL, or just within the last month, it was first announced by, or the person that we heard from was Andrew Zadronowski on Twitter. On July 15th, he had tweeted that the agreement that was set between the Newfoundland Growlers and the St. John Sports and Entertainment never got ratified last year. They just kind of threw it together so the team could play, or 2 years ago, I'm sorry, when the Growlers won the cup. So therefore, right now, the Growlers technically don't have a place to play up in St. John.
We don't have enough time to peel back all the onions in this. This is a grade A mess. There's a lot of politics being played here, it feels like. And I think all that Newfoundland wants to do is just have a home. Here they are sitting at essentially August 1st with no home. And that's a tad disconcerting. How do you sell tickets? How do you do all of this stuff that you need to do to play hockey and get ready to promote your team beginning in just a few short months? If you don't have a home, that's an impossibility. So we'll reach out to Dean McDonald. Unfortunately, there were some connection issues that kept us from doing that. We'll effort to get him on either in this next podcast or shortly after to offer some light on that. There's a whole host of places that they could go, but there's not anywhere on that island of Newfoundland and Labrador outside of the St. John's Arena, Mile One Center, that has an arena that seats over 1,200 people. So that would be suboptimal to have 36 regular season games and likely Kelly Cup playoff games being played in a 1,200 seat venue. But you and I watched playoff games in a 917 seat venue. So they're a whole different host of issues there. We hope that both sides get it fixed and rather soon. But this is just for a team and a city and an arena to have this much friction 3 years in is probably not a good sign.
If you're to say one or two places you could see the team landing if they're not able to play in St. John, where do you see that being?
Without knowing the lay of the land, you could go as far west as Brampton, back to the Powerade Center there in Brampton where the Beast played. I don't know if the Beast fans would show up because they didn't for the Beast, which is why they folded. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe Hamilton, maybe some of those smaller venues that have 3,000 or 4,000 seats. You could have a hockey team there. I'm not entirely sure, having not looked at at the lay of the land up there.
Yeah, and Zadronowski put out a good point that there's just not a lot of close places to play that don't already have someone that's playing like youth hockey up there in Canada. So it's a really tough situation to figure out where they could find a home.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for sure, and we'll stay on top of it, of course, as we move on through the next several weeks. But hopefully all sides get this figured out here fairly quick as we move toward the resolution of this offseason coming up here.
And as we round out period one, for the second period, we're joined by the voice of the Iowa Heartlanders, David Fine. First of all, probably really exciting to get stuff started up there. Congratulations on the role. How are things going in Iowa so far?
Everything's great. Moved out here about 3 months ago. I love it here, guys. It's I'm talking now outside of the work, but the personal is great. Like, Iowa City is awesome. It's a really cool college town. It's young. We're in Coralville. It basically feels like you're in one city. You know, I'm a mile and a half right now, 2 miles from Kinnick Stadium, where the University of Iowa Hawkeyes football team plays. That's like the first thing I learned when I moved here. Food scene's good. It's got a little bit of a Minneapolis, Chicago influence, and it's nice. The arena's unbelievable. Brian McKenna, the president and former ECHL commissioner, has done an amazing job. The staff is incredible that he's brought on so far, with still some more coming in from the front office side. And yeah, it's just great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
doing great, and it's good to talk to you. And we watched the Coastin shows that you guys did on Flow. You and Evan Pivnik, those were really good shows.
I was going to say, unfortunately, you watched them. No, we had a fun time doing it. But thanks for watching.
Yeah. Those sometimes those willed away the lonely nights when there were no hockey, or when I was just needing to burn some time in the house, being so cooped up with COVID. So thanks very much for putting those on. You talked about the scene there in Iowa City and Coralville. I'll get to that here in just a minute, but I want to talk about quickly just working with Brian McKenna and the level of professionalism that he brings to that staff, and to how that product is going to be rolled out. What have you learned working from Brian, and what is it like working alongside somebody who has been steeped in hockey for such a long time?
Well, that's just it. He's done this before. He's an extremely kind, caring, passionate individual. I haven't beat him into the office yet any day. There's been times you get there at 7:55 in the morning and his car's already in the lot. Like, he's the first one in and the last one to leave, and it's like, that's your boss, that's your leader. The way he thinks is, you know, I'm still relatively young, I think, and he has been there and done this with multiple teams. So how are you not going to follow the leader when the leader is already setting just like the best example that you can? He's an unbelievable boss. He's a wonderful person. He's been great to work for. He's as advertised. You see why he was so successful before he was even the ECHL commissioner, and why he was the commissioner of the league for 16 years. There's a reason for all of this. And it's unbelievable is too strong of a word and an often overused word, but it's so motivating and fun and fresh to be here and seeing him. You know, we're doing this thing from scratch, like he did with the Trenton Titans, like he did with the Carolina Monarchs, like he did with the Ottawa Senators. He's done this before at a high level. So it's just great. He's awesome. He's wonderful to learn from.
And one of the things that you kind of touched on it there, and you're talking about the Coralville kind of community. I'm eager to hear what you're seeing from the community and how they're starting to accept the Heartlanders into their hearts, no pun intended there. And maybe you could tell us what the community has to be excited for here in the coming months as we get ready for hockey season.
Yeah, I'll start with our approach to getting the brand out. So what I've been very impressed by is not only Brian's direction, but the ownership's direction of that they want to do things the right way. And it's not always just like, buy tickets now, buy tickets. No, it's like, we are doing things that we were at the Johnson County Fair for 4 days, and it was just 95 freaking degrees every day for the last 4 here in Coralville. Like, there are people coming up to us. We want to be friendly. We want to say, hey, have you seen the new arena down at it's called the Iowa River Landing, is like the neighborhood seen the new arena down at the River Landing? And people in Iowa give you a little bit of a better shot than where I grew up in terms of having a real conversation sometimes. If someone said, hey, you been to the new arena yet? And if I was in New Jersey where I grew up, it'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, it would be like, oh, why are you talking to me? But like, we're at the county fair and you're just having conversations with 20 or 30 people every 2 hours. And it's like, people want to learn, people want to know what you're about. And they might be faking it, but they're doing a pretty damn good job if they're faking it. So no, like, it's it's just kind of like, we want to be that sort of we're not going to compete with the Hawkeyes. They have the football team and the basketball team and the wrestling. Like, that's not our goal. And it's not our goal to compete with the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders, which are just 30 minutes up the road in the USHL and have a great brand. Like, that's not our goal. Our goal is to develop sort of this community-based mindset, grow the youth hockey, which we'll do with Jerry Fleming, who just came on board as head coach and is just a tremendous guy. Brian will have a big part in it. And so our pitch is kind of like, come see the Iowa Heartlanders at Extreme Arena, because we're trying to put together the pieces that people know that the hockey team is coming. They might not know our name yet or missed it in the news. People know that there's a brand new arena, but do they know that the hockey team plays at the new arena? A lot of people know one or the other, but we're kind of trying to put together the pieces and connect that. So, I would just say our approach has been, let's get out in the community. Let's do things the right way. Let's, hammer the phones, hit the phones. And like, the phone calls aren't like, hey, you should buy season tickets. It's like, tell us about your company. Tell us about you. And then if we have the time to get into hopefully getting them for a group night or a season ticket or, whatever out, then so be it. But we're working hard together as a team, and that's the way it should be.
I'm glad you brought up the Rough Riders. Harding and I kind of talked a little bit about it there in the last segment. Between them and the Quad City Storm, you guys, the Iowa Wild, the Minnesota Wild, Minnesota's kind of found themselves with almost 5 lines of affiliation there. Harding even mentioned that I-80 is going to become the hockey highway. What is that area going to really develop into, being a hockey community in the United States?
Yeah, and I'll add as well that I worked in the USHL for 2 years, and I took many a trip up the I-380 to Cedar Rapids, and then you go a little bit to the north and west, and you're in Waterloo. And if you go to the north and east, first of all, you pass by where Field of Dreams was filmed, and then secondly, you end up in Dubuque, 20 minutes away. So within a 90-minute drive, you would end up, if you went straight west, you'd end up 10 minutes from Des Moines. If you went east, you would have already gone past where the Quad City Mallards and the played and the Quad City Storm do play. You go 30 minutes north, you're at the Rough Riders Stadium. You go an hour 20 away, you're in Waterloo, and you go an hour 25 north and east, you're in Dubuque. So, people here love those three junior teams. They love them. People love the Rough Riders and love the Waterloo Blackhawks and love the Dubuque Fighting Saints. And we get asked a lot, oh, you guys play in Dubuque, Waterloo, Cedar Rapids? Like, that's kind of what we get asked here. And we explain we're the AA affiliate of the Minnesota Wild, the same way that the Cedar Rapids Colonels are the high A, single A affiliate of the Minnesota Twins. And then people get it immediately. In terms of the I-80 corridor here, we want it to be, like you said, a hockey highway. We want it to be that, the people in Iowa City now have a youth hockey destination outside of always driving up to Cedar Rapids or always going to Des Moines, where they're just done a great job with the Iowa Wild with the youth hockey development. So it's an hour and 40 away, but it's a lot different driving an hour 40 to Des Moines than it would be driving an hour 40 like if you were going from like Miami north or wherever the heck you were. So it's different, and people here just love their hockey too. It's like, it's great. People know that there are teams here, and people know that we're coming, and we're just trying to, continue to do the work to make sure that opening night is great.
Gary Fleming did join the team this week as the first head coach in Heartlanders history. Never had a losing season as a head coach. Had a lot of success there in Florida for a few years, and then had some success there in Bakersfield as the head coach. What can you say about Gary Fleming and what he can do to really start this franchise on a good note?
He's been here for 4 days. So I picked up Jerry from the airport on Sunday night. He said, I'm landing at 11:30. I'll take an Uber. And I said, well, no, I said, I'd pick you up. I don't care. Like, just tell me when you're going to be there. And he got in the car, and it was like he was a little tired because he was coming from Toronto and had a little bit of a late evening of travel. But no, like he was so fired up, and his energy in the office in the last 4 days has been, it's been fun to be around. He just walks around. Hey, how you doing? What are you working on? How can I help? Last night we were at the fair. He said there's no rodeos like they have in Johnson County, Iowa, the same they have in Canada. So he checked out the rodeo for a few minutes at the fair. Said, I'm ready to go. I got my fill. And we all went as a staff that was there, and we had a nice dinner at a local sponsor and everything. He introduced himself to a few people and kind of kept it low key. But to get to the point, last night, like, it was 9 o'clock, and I got a call from Brian McKenna, who said, hey, the mayor just called me and said, There's an opening on one of the local radio stations tomorrow. Like some guy had to quit, and the mayor knows the host. And do you want to go on with Jerry? And I said, I can call him. I mean, it's on at 8 a.m. It's 9 p.m. right now. I don't know if he'll do it. I called him, and he's like, let's do it. Can't wait to, like that's kind of the energy he brings. So it's infectious. Like Brian's energy and professionalism is infectious. It's a good group here. Like, I don't think I'm saying honestly, and you can't say this from everyone you've worked with in your life or every place you ever worked with, but everyone on the staff is great here, from the obviously the top of the top, but like the front office people are just as important in your daily interactions, and they're all wonderful. So I have zero complaints. It's been great, and Jerry's been great.
What kind of team can Heartlander fans expect from a Jerry Fleming-led hockey club?
He wants to play up tempo, but every coach is going to say that. A lot of it's going to depend on hopefully the help the Minnesota Wild provide, which is just this case with any team in the ECHL, what the NHL and the AHL affiliate give. He's pounding the phones. Well, hopefully now that we have the coach announcement that came out, we wanted to do it a couple weeks ago, but we waited till he was in town. We'll start having players announced, and I guess at that point we'll see what kind of team we're going to have. So I think it's still building, but there's a reason he hasn't had a losing season as a head coach, and he made the playoffs 7 straight years with the Florida Everblades, and he wouldn't have gone to the top league in Germany unless he was a smart guy and knew what he was doing. And he wouldn't have been an AHL head coach if he didn't know either. So right. He was trusted with Leon Draisaitl. I feel like you could trust him with some ECHL contracted players, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe just a few kid gloves, maybe.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah. Personally, for you, you weren't calling games last year, but you were still doing the podcast and video show with Evan Pivnik. What did COVID teach you about how to be better at your craft and how to better relate to fans and things like that? Everybody learned something from the pandemic. What did you learn?
Yeah, I don't know about the broadcasting side as much. I'll just talk about as a human being and as a guy, which is like, I was working with the Royals, and then obviously like everyone got furloughed, and then I needed to kind of make sure I was looking out for myself at the end of the day. And then when Brian McKenna calls you, it's hard to say no. Yeah. Anyway, so I was actually a contact tracer for the state of Pennsylvania. So I would call people that were, not diagnosed. Like contact tracing is you're calling people that are the close contacts, and then the case investigators are calling the sick people, figure out who they were in touch with. But that was eye-opening. I mean, it was a lot slower paced. Talked to a lot of different types of people. Pennsylvania is a pretty diverse state to talk to a lot of different types of people. Ended up doing some data analysis for the state of Pennsylvania on the side there with the contact tracing. And it kind of just, I don't know, I really appreciated the time I got to spend at home with family. I was back in New Jersey for, I'd say 7/8 of the pandemic. Because I was only 2 hours away from Reading if I needed to go back. So, but I spent a lot of time with my mom, helped out with my sister, has a lot of disabilities, and I hadn't really had that for, 6 years coming out of college, and helped my mom my mom with her puppy as well, or a rescue dog that was a couple of years old. So I don't know. I just wanted to be happy coming out of it. Like I love doing what I do. I love broadcasting games. I love talking about hockey. I love thinking about it. But I also just wanted to be happy. Like I wanted to not just be miserable working for whatever because I felt like it was the right thing for the career. Oh, it would look a certain way. Like, no, the move I made here, like, yeah, I moved far away from family, but it was all about like, this is a good job in a good area with good people. And like, it was very much like, I don't care if it's a lateral move that I was going from ECHL to ECHL team. I just want to end up in a place where I was going to be happy. And this has been the best 3 months of probably my last 4 years or 5 years. So like, I'm really glad I came out here, and COVID taught me just to, I don't hate to say appreciate the little things, but just try to find a place that you're happy. And yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did tell Will in our last segment that I'm going to come work for you.
For the Heartlanders or for me?
for you. I'll work with the Heartlanders with you. How about that?
Works for me. I mean, that's I think I'm getting the sauce on the rice. I think we're kind of getting it. So yeah. Cool.
We'll find out together.
Yeah.
You now get exposed to another set of arenas in the ECHL as opposed to being up there shoved up in the northeast corner of the league footprint. Which venues are you excited to go visit the first time you get to go?
I barely have been to any of these places. I'm like, what the heck was I missing the last few years? Because Reading would just play Worcester, Brampton, Newfoundland. Newfoundland was great. Maine, Norfolk, and Wheeling. Like that was, and Adirondack was my favorite in the Northeast. I'm excited for Toledo on a Saturday night. I'm excited to see Fort Wayne. I haven't been to Toledo yet. They came to Reading like 5 times when I was there. I'm like, why can't we go there once? It's only 7 hours away, 8 hours away.
Right. Rumor has it there's like 5 flights of stairs to get to your broadcast position in Fort Wayne.
In Fort Wayne?
Yeah.
Oh, I know that. I know Fort Wayne. I know of that with Fort Wayne. I'm excited to go to Rapid City too. I know it'll be January, so I'll probably be sitting in my room every minute I'm not at the arena because it'll probably be like 2 degrees out. But I'm excited to go to Rapid City. I've been in Rapid City before. I love the town. Upset that Mark Benetti has unfortunately moved on because we had a little pact that we needed to make sure we were a little bit dented for at least 2 of the 3 game series at the pregame skate, but that's okay. Yeah, Wings Event Center. I mean, like these places are all historic hockey venues. I haven't been to Kalamazoo. I haven't been to Toledo. I haven't been to Fort Wayne. I've been to Cincinnati just like once. So yeah, like I got a lot of places to see. I'm excited. I've been to Allen, believe it or not. I loved going to Allen a few years ago. The thing to know about our arena here, Extreme Arena, is that it's actually looks a lot kind of like how Allen looks, except instead of all like Kohl's and like In-N-Out Burger and kind of chains, it's very like mom and pop restaurants, like authentic. So it's like an arena district, like the arena. What is the crowning piece? It just opened 6, 7 months ago. Like the arena is the crowning piece of the 12 restaurant, 15 shop Iowa River Landing. There's 5 hotels. There's like apartment buildings absolutely everywhere, like $1,400 a month condos. It's like crazy. And it's like, this is like, you make the left into the river landing and you're like, wow, like that's like the reaction. So I think people will be excited to visit here too. I know DJ and Wheeling's all about it. So every time I post a damn picture from the arena, I get 10 text messages and they're all the best. He's like, can't wait, can't wait, can't wait. So yeah.
You can mark Will and I down as well because when we get up there, I'm looking forward to it. Wichita plays twice up there this year. We're gonna he'll be in Indiana and I'll be here in Wichita. We're gonna meet in Iowa. So oh
my God, you guys will love it. Let me know when you guys are coming up. It's great here. I'll make sure to pass along some local knowledge of establishments as well. And make sure you guys are good that way. There's a fair number of fun spots to spend away from the rink here, so you guys will enjoy it.
We will definitely need it.
Yeah.
Well, we're more than happy to have you join us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to kind of introduce us to what the Iowa Heartlanders are going to bring to not only the ECHL but the whole hockey landscape here in America. Obviously, that part of the country has stamped its place as a hockey hotbed, and it's going to be really exciting to see what you guys can do to bring to that.
Bucks and pucks, baby. Bucks and pucks. That's what we're bringing to the table. So thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. Be well. We'll see you guys in a few months for a Heartlanders game.
No problem, man. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Take care.
You too.
So that's how we'll end period 2. Once again, I'll say that we are so thankful that he was able to join us tonight. As we move into period 3, though, one of the biggest stories in sports in the last couple weeks is that Texas and OU are going to pull out of the Big 12 and move over to the SEC. Actually, just a couple hours ago, the SEC voted unanimously to bring them into the league starting in 2025. And Harding texted me and said, hey, who would be in your minor league SEC? And then here we are. And we've both got our our minor league SEC. Before we reveal our two teams, I just want to hear what was the knowledge for this? Like, what sparked your interest as this is a team that belongs in my hockey SEC?
Well, I wanted the best of the best. If you think about it, there are very few slouches in the SEC conference. Oklahoma is going to go in there, a perennial Big 12 championship contender. Texas is back on the rise again. Texas A&M had slumped a few years, but now they're back up there. Alabama's Alabama. Auburn's Auburn. Florida. I wanted the best of the best. And so, I looked at arenas. I looked at arenas and fan bases. I looked at their overall records. I looked at how they've developed players and things like that. So it was really a multi-pronged approach. And as I found out from putting our list together, you and I don't have a whole lot of difference in our list as we go through them here.
Yeah, that surprised me as well, especially with I think that your knowledge of minor league hockey is exponentially larger than mine. I've only spent a few years covering this, so it was a little more difficult for me to really gauge the major impact some of these teams and franchises had on the areas around them. So this was a fun thing to dig into and try to decide who belongs in those 16 hallowed spots. I will note that neither of us decided that we need to make it geological like the SEC originally was, and then Mizzou joined them and Texas A&M joined them, and that got ruined. So it's not geological. We're spreading from coast to coast, from one country to another. We don't have any picks there. It's just spread out. It's just 16 teams who would make one awesome league of minor league hockey.
Yeah. I kind of kept mine in a little bit of a footprint, but I mean, not really. So,
dig into it.
Yeah, let's do this. This is yours. This is your list or your graphic of teams who you have in your minor league hockey SEC, if you will. Who, Alan, I think you and I both agree on Alan, but why Bakersfield?
See, I think Bakersfield they're kind of my say Texas or OU pick. They're one of mine at least, because I think that they have done what they've needed to do in the past couple of years to put themselves on the map permanently in minor league hockey. I think their affiliation with Edmonton obviously has been very helpful for them. Edmonton had a few rough years and had to start building from the farm team, and Bakersfield has been a wonderful place for players to develop. Obviously, they've got to work with Wichita as well in the past couple of years, so you and I have got to see it a little differently. But they've won 2 of the last 3 Pacific Division titles. They're firmly placed as a hockey hotbed there on the West Coast, a place where it's hard to find hockey sometimes. I think Bakersfield, for years to come, is going to make themselves a team that you have to beat if you want to make the playoffs ahead of them. They're going to make the playoffs, but if you want to make the playoffs ahead of them, you've got to beat them.
What about the rest of your list?
So I'll just kind of go through quickly. Colorado, I think you and I could both agree, could have won 2 or 3 or 4 more ECHL titles had they stayed in the ECHL. That almost speaks for itself. They won back-to-back Kelly Cups and then moved to the AHL. That was huge for them. Florida, they haven't been to the Kelly Cup finals since 11-12, yet they are always in the conversation. They're always either first or second in their division, sometimes first or second in the entire league. They know how to win down there. They're kind of like a solid Auburn right now, who's not making the title game, but they're always in the conversation left and right.
Okay.
Fort Wayne, I don't think I would have had on this list had they not won the Cup this year. They've got a good history of hockey. They've really struggled in their first couple of years in the ECHL finding their place. They're in a very difficult division in the Central Division. This year proved as their best opportunity to win the Cup, regardless of the short schedule. Just with the way divisions were kind of plotted out, it was their best chance to win it, not having to play Toledo a bunch or Cincinnati a bunch or Indy a bunch. They still had to play Indy a bunch, I guess. But it was their best chance, and they took that and they did the best with it. Head coach Brodeur really found a way to use every single goalie that came close to that organization because they couldn't keep one healthy for so long. Fort Wayne has earned a spot in the SEC just because it's always a consistent moving up for them. They're always building on the year before. I'm very eager to see how the next season goes for them. Grand Rapids is the only team in the AHL who has won 2 Calder Cups since the AHL expanded to 30-plus teams. They're a team that is always in the conversation. They're always finding a way to make the playoffs. If you're the team who's won it twice in the last 7 years after expanding to that many more teams, you've done something right. That's why they're up there for me.
That is Maddie's stat of the night quality up there. Well done.
That's the one that jumped out at me, and that's why I put them on the list, is because they were the only one who had done it. I think Hershey is the only other team who has done it since they moved from the 18 or 19 mark all the way up to the 27 mark. I think Hershey's the only other one who has done it, and that's why they are on my list as well. They won the title in 05-06, then went back-to-back in 08-09 and 09-10. And every year they're in the conversation to be the one who gets to represent that division in the playoffs. They've had a lot of excitement getting to work through Washington with them as well. And I think that's been a fun affiliation for them. So eager to see how they continue. They've obviously earned their spot. I wanted to make sure that I included at least 3 SPHL teams in this, just because I think the SPHL is very key for what is happening in minor league hockey. I think the ECHL doesn't succeed as well as it does without the SPHL, because almost every week someone's getting a call up from the SPHL and almost acting like a single A hockey league in the United States, a league that's not been around as much as the other two. But Huntsville, they had back-to-back titles before the COVID stuff happened. They're always finding success down there. They're a team that I think everyone circles when they have to play them in the SPHL, because that club's going to bring it night in, night out. It's so exciting to get to see the SPHL expand once again, bringing in the brand new team from Vermilion County, and you're going to see a lot of competitive play there in the SPHL, I think. Moving on, I had Idaho next. They haven't been in the title series since 09 and 10, but the Mountain Division's terrified of Idaho. They're just another team that the Mountain Division has to climb through. I still believe the Mountain Division is arguably one of the toughest divisions in all of minor league hockey. When Wichita, Allen, Tulsa, Utah, Idaho, and Kansas City with a lineup like that, there are not very many years where more than 2 of those teams are struggling. Mm-hmm. So you've got to fight night in, night out if you want to make a playoff spot. And quite often, we're coming down to the last week or 2 of the weeks to find out who is making the playoffs. But for some reason, year in and year out, Idaho's the team in the 1 or 2 spot who's already got their spot fulfilled. And that's why I saw them as securing a place here in the SEC. Up next for me was Macon. They ran the SPHL this year. If you wanted to win in the SPHL, you had to win in Macon, and nobody could do it until Pensacola did it in the finals. That's a conversation for a different day, but they were the runner-up this year, but found a way to win night in, night out, and they also won in 16-17. In a league that's not been around that long, they have firmly put themselves as a team that has to be worried about every year, kind of like the Allen is in the ECHL. They make the other now 10 teams worry about them, and I think that's enough to put you in the SEC. Up next for me is Milwaukee. They were a team for me that it was a little harder to put them in there. I saw them maybe as the Vanderbilt or the Mizzou, the team where you kind of scratch your head a little bit, but if you dig a little deeper, it makes some sense. Milwaukee, I didn't get the exact stat here, but they have missed the playoffs either once or twice in the last 8 or 9 years. And when they miss the playoffs, it's by 1 or 2 points. I looked back 15 or 20 years, and this team is always finding a way to make the playoffs. They have a really good thing going up there. They're doing something right. And obviously, if you're going to make the playoffs that consistently with rosters that are always changing like they are in the AHL so quite often, because they're so instrumental in affiliations and stuff, you're doing something right if you're consistently making the playoffs, and that's what Milwaukee does. Up next for me was Peoria. I think you're crazy if you don't have Peoria as a minor league SEC team. They were successful in the ECHL. They're successful in the SPHL. It's a place that people have to think about hockey when they're there. And I think at the end of the day, one of the things that makes the SEC is that everybody's worried about the teams there.
Mm-hmm.
Up next for me was Providence. They're another team like Hershey or Grand Rapids. There's so many teams in the AHL that are doing consistent work night or weekend or year in and year out. And this is one of the teams that has been able to do that. They have a good thing going with the Bruins, and the Bruins get it done every year. And when you can have an NHL team doing this well and an affiliate doing this well combined like that, it's rare to see both teams succeeding at this level. Providence was a no-brainer for me. South Carolina, I think, proved themselves once again this year why they belong here. They had no business being in the Kelly Cup playoffs. They struggled significantly throughout the year and found their way and fought in those last couple of weeks and found their way into the 4th spot of the playoffs, upset Florida, go on to the Kelly Cup finals. If that doesn't tell you why South Carolina should be there, I don't know what does. A good team in minor league hockey is able to fight through the adversity they're facing and is able to use just about any player they're handed to win consistent hockey games. And South Carolina found a way to do it late in the year. And obviously that's what proved to be good enough for them to make my SEC at least. Syracuse is one of my teams that I wanted to put in there partially because of the rich history that they have in the AHL. Their first AHL team was the Stars in 1936, and they have almost been in the AHL every single year, whether it was the Stars, Warriors, Eagles, Firebirds, or now the Crunch. When you think of Syracuse now, you've got to think of minor league hockey and AHL hockey, and the Crunch continue to do that at a very high level. They play good hockey. They have a good relationship with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, if you haven't checked, are doing something right up there as well.
Yeah.
Syracuse is a place that you think about when you think about minor league hockey, and that's what earned them here. This one I didn't even have to think about on ice play. It was the fact that they're always a team to talk about. They've always got something going on there, and you've got to have that if you're going to have a marketing side of an SEC. My last team is the Toledo Walleye. You and I think see pretty eye to eye on Toledo, just because Toledo is a hockey town. That's the only way I can really think to say it. They get to host some outdoor games here in this season. The fans come out crazy to Toledo games. They have great rivalries within the Central Division. People pay to watch walleye hockey, and if you're going to be in the SEC, you've got to have a good on-ice product that gets butts in seats, and that's exactly what Toledo does. That is my SEC right there.
I like that. By the way, the Syracuse Crunch have an incredible logo too. Knock the logo.
It might be in the top 10 of minor league logos, and I mean every sport. I mean it's up there. Yeah,
that is up there. That's a good breakdown of all of those teams. Huntsville's won a lot of SPHL titles. South Carolina had a chance to win their 4th Kelly Cup championship this year, which is something that no ECHL team has ever done. Idaho's made the playoffs for, I think, 20 straight years, I want to say, dating back to their Western League days, and they're a 2-time Kelly Cup champion as well. So yeah, a lot of good things on that list to talk about. Hard not to knock anything on that list. Well done.
This was a fun topic to try to dig into.
Yeah, and it's just a spur of the moment thing, because I messaged you like Tuesday, and I said, "What if we did this, like our hockey SEC?" And you were like, you kind of fumbled around a little bit, and you came back and you were like, "Oh, bleep it, we're just gonna do a podcast."
I mean, I took it for a couple seconds, and I was like, that that would be cool. And I sat down to work for 10 minutes and I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Right.
I couldn't stop figuring out who would be in my, and I was unproductive until I got to figure them out. And it's, and I'm eager to hear if we have fans that send us their 16 team as well. I would love to hear who they have and why they have them, because this is really up for interpretation. I'm sure that just about everyone's are going to be just a little different. But I think there's 5 or 6 or 10 teams maybe that are going to be pretty consistent through a lot of them.
I think so as well. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, make sure that you drop us a comment and let us know what your 16 are, or if you're watching later on YouTube or on the podcast form, hit us up at the 3 Periods Pod, at 3 Periods Pod on Twitter, and we'll run those back to you next time we get together here in August. Here are my 16 teams for the SEC. And obviously you got to go with Allen as one of those teams. You don't win 4 straight championships and get left on the sideline. And what Steve Martinson continues to build down there in Allen is extremely impressive. So Allen's obviously in. I went with Birmingham here as opposed to Bakersfield. And the reason why is because I think if you have Huntsville in there, you almost have to have Birmingham for that natural rival. That to me fits. And I kind of went with some rivalries because Colorado's obviously a lock in there, and they were rivals with Allen back when they were both in the ECHL. So that makes sense as well. Colorado, having watched them win Central Hockey League championships and then win back-to-back Kelly Cups, that's a no-brainer there as well. They're going to be in the American Hockey League for a long time to come, being affiliated with the Colorado Avalanche. Florida, perennially good team. I love your comparison to Auburn as being a team that's won it before and can rack up 7 or 8, 9 wins in a year, go to a decent bowl, and maybe show out in the bowl game. I don't know, but I really like I really like Florida. They just are built for consistency. Fort Wayne would have been in this in my hockey SEC, regardless of what happened this year in the Kelly Cup finals or in the Kelly Cup playoffs with the Comets. This year, they won their 10th league title in their 70-year history. That's pretty impressive, and they've done it in leagues, going back into the 1950s. So, to your point about Syracuse having a rich hockey history, I went with that as well with the Fort Wayne Comets. Never mind the fact that they won the Kelly Cup championship there just a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. The Grand Rapids Griffins, I did not know that stat about them winning the Calder Cup twice since expansion to 30 teams. That is a really good pull by you. I went there just simply for the atmosphere. You got to have a vibrant atmosphere. Grand Rapids has a really good team every year, it seems like. They're affiliated with the Detroit Red Wings. And Detroit has fallen on hard times recently. Made the Griffins a pretty good team. So they're in my hockey SEC. The Hershey Bears are in there as well. Again, this is a slam dunk for me. Another perennially good team. They're always in the title conversation there up in Northeast PA. So Hershey for me gets in to the hockey SEC. Huntsville as well, given the fact that not only are they rivals with Birmingham, but Huntsville has rattled off 2 or 3 championships there in the Southern Pro Hockey League. You and I differed, and this is going to be the biggest bone of contention here, I think, out of this exercise for us. The Kansas City Mavericks. And while they have fallen on hard times recently as a franchise, when you get 5,800 people in Cable Dahmer Arena, that place shakes. It is the only building I've ever been in where the building has literally shook because it's been so loud. that is an atmosphere all of its own. They do a really good job of presenting the product up there in Kansas City, and they've done some house cleaning and some reshuffling of the deck there. I firmly believe that Tato Had is the right coach for Kansas City. I think you're going to see that Mavericks team bounce back big this year. With another year of Coach O'Had there behind the bench in Kansas City and a fresh face to the organization there with the new team president. So the Kansas City pick is more of a bank on the future, kind of like an Oklahoma or a Texas here, as opposed to what they've done in the past. But man, that is one rabid fan base that just loves to get after it there in Independence. Milwaukee, for me, is again a team that always manages to find a way into the conversation. They're really good. They've been paired with Nashville now for the last few years. They also work with Florida in the ECHL. So that to me is a really good team there. Just find a way to get in. And before the COVID stoppage happened, Milwaukee was the best team in the American Hockey League. So let's see if they can duplicate that this coming season.
And let the record show they have some of the nicest jerseys in minor league hockey.
Yeah, that is a swanky logo, by the way. I mean, that logo doesn't suck.
No, not at all.
You can't have a hockey SEC without the Peoria Rivermen, even though it's been a while since they've won a title. They've gotten damn close there with head coach John Guy Trudell there in Central Illinois. They've really built something up there, and it's kind of a head scratcher that they don't make the move to the ECHL. But when you dig a little deeper, you understand why that they don't make that move. It's just, they have a niche fan base, and why bring that fan base up to the next level when you're running the league essentially like the Rivermen are. So they're the Alabama of the SPHL until proven otherwise. They're going to be in my hockey SEC. To that point, I brought in Pensacola because they have 4 SPHL championships. Again, that just is a team that finds a way to get in, and when they get in, they do a lot of damage in the playoffs. Case in point this year, upsetting the Macon Mayhem. The South Carolina Stingrays, you go off their history, I think they've only missed the playoffs once. You're right, they had no business getting into the playoffs this year. They got healthy and got veteran help, and that keyed into a long run in the playoffs to face the Fort Wayne Comets. South Carolina will win their 4th Kelly Cup. It's just a matter of when, not if, down there in South Carolina. Texas here, the Texas Stars, for me, are more of an ode to the Austin, Texas market itself. That area has really blossomed up in the last few years, and Texas, by the way, did play for a Calder Cup here, I think in 2018 against one of the teams on this graphic, who I'll get to in just a moment. So that team was not far off very long ago. It'll be interesting to see what they do this year now that the Stars up there in Dallas have loaded up with veteran help this year up front. So it'll be another year for that talent down there in Cedar Park to get rich back there in Texas. So, that's the reason why they're in my hockey SEC. You and I completely agree on Toledo. To borrow David Fine's statement from a few minutes ago, pucks and bucks for Toledo. That's how they do it, and it is a really, really, really good product as well. Finally, for me, the Toronto Marlies. I don't see how you can have a hockey SEC without a team from Canada there. There's not a lot of minor league hockey teams in Canada right now. That number is growing. But you look at Toronto and what they did in 2018, I believe, after their Calder Cup win, and just how rabid that fan base was and how much they got interacted with by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and how that led to the success of the Newfoundland Growlers a year later. it's hard not to have a franchise like the Toronto Marlies in there as well. So a little bit of differences in our lists, but for me, I think the biggest one between us is the Kansas City one.
Yeah, that one took me for a shock when I had first seen it from you, and I was looking forward to this just to hear on that. And it's your reasoning for them is very close to my reasoning for Bakersfield, that we're really expecting the future to be very bright for those two teams.
Yeah.
You kind of expect that Bakersfield and Kansas City are going to be a team you're going to have to talk about for years to come. And in Kansas City's case, Tato had is a huge part of the, I guess if you want to call it, rebuild going on up there. I think he is the perfect guy for the job. I had picked him as my midseason coach of the year, and Kansas City just couldn't quite get all the ducks in a row for the second half of the year, but he'll win a coach of the year or two here in the next few.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a pretty fun exercise, and you could make a case for any of these teams, but I think that we've come up with probably the best, 24, 25 teams in minor league hockey to have as our SEC.
At least pretty close. You mentioned that Peoria was your Alabama. If you were to have a Nick Saban, who's that?
Ooh.
Of minor league hockey.
I think this answer, but I Steve Martinson.
I didn't think there was another answer. That's why I asked to see if maybe you had another one.
I thought about it.
I don't think there's anyone else who can consistently put his team in a place to win.
Yeah,
Last year, was it the year right as the stoppage was happening? They struggled a little bit. Yet, even when they were struggling, almost every hockey game they were in, it was a third period hockey game.
Yeah,
he is a guy that sets up his team to be the best they can be night in and night out, and that's exactly what Saban does out there in Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. So that for me is who the Saban is of my group. Is he the Saban of your group as well? I take it.
I think he's the Saban of nearly everybody's group.
Yeah,
I'd be very eager to hear from anyone watching or listening. If you got it, we'd like to hear your full SECs, who your Alabama is, and who your Nick Saban is. Because just like the teams, I think there might be a little differential in there, but I think the Nick Saban is going to be a hard one to change just because of the sheer consistency.
Agreed.
So that's how we'll tie up period 3. And for the first time on the 3 Periods pod, we're going to try something a little different. And we're going to take you into 3-on-3 overtime, where we each have a couple of notes that we'd like to bring up. I'll start. Fort Wayne coming off a title, and they're getting the 2021-22 season started the way they need to. They announced the signings of Anthony Petruzzelli, Zach Pachiro, and Oliver Cooper, who combined during the regular season to give consistency all around the board, found a way to put a Fort Wayne team in contention night in and night out. That's why they made the playoffs. That's why they fought their way through 3 hard-fought series and won a Kelly Cup. They combined for 63 points last year, while Pachiro only had 1 point in the postseason. Petruzzelli and Cooper each had 4. That's a good base to begin the title defense with, and I have to throw it in there for our Thunder fans. Wichita favorite Nick Boca was announced as he is a returner. That was announced just a few hours ago, so Wichita favorite Boca gets to try it again this year.
They don't play this year in the regular season. The only way that they would play is in the Kelly Cup playoffs again. That's a solid base for Ben Boudreau, and the clock is ticking on getting Boudreau a contract extension. He's a free agent head coach, and I'll just throw this out there. There's a job opening in Hershey, and Ben Boudreau's dad, Bruce, coached there. I'm just saying.
Worth noting.
Like, he's not a formal candidate, but come on. How do you not investigate that?
It'll be something we'll keep you up to date on.
Yeah, absolutely. My first topic here is we've seen a whole lot of lists in the ECHL, the protected list, season-ending roster, qualifying offer list. I think we're all listed out. Does the ECHL have too many lists?
I would say yes. I think that there's a way you can combine that protected list and season-ending roster to just have one roster that is going to be the one that you get to delegate your qualifying offers off of. I think it's a good thing to keep qualifying offers in there. They do a good thing for the game. But I think you need one at the end of the season, and then that's who is your basis of who you get to choose for your qualifying offers.
Right. I would agree with that. I don't need to know the protected list because anybody who had been traded there or was going to play there or had thought about playing there, you're going to throw on that list. So that list is the most meaningless list. I'd rather see that season-ending roster be the list that starts everything in motion in the offseason for the ECHL.
I would like that.
Yep.
My second topic has to do with the free agency going on up in the NHL. Marc-Andre Fleury traded to Chicago, found out about it on Twitter. It sounds like he was in communication with it, but they weren't able to get a hold of him in time. Found out on Twitter he was being traded to the Blackhawks for prospect Mikael Hakkarainen. And the craziest thing, according to Greg Wyszynski, Hakkarainen will continue to play in the Chicago affiliation with the Rockford Ice Hogs. I think this is the first time we've ever seen this happen. My question to you is, do you think this is a new trend of players getting traded to other organizations for their NHL rights, but staying with the affiliated team?
That is a good question. And I wonder if this may be Vegas kind of shedding that salary, saying, hey, we'll have his rights and you'll pay him as kind of a way. I don't know how that would work out. It might be. It would be very interesting to see how that would work out. But hopefully, it would get very complicated. I would hope from a journalistic stance that doesn't become the norm.
I would agree. And a lot of signs point towards Marc-Andre Fleury likely not reporting, likely calling it a career here. If so, he's got to be jotted down in that top 3 or 4 goalies of all time conversation, just because of the success he had in Pittsburgh, and then gets selected in the expansion draft and puts the Vegas Golden Knights on his shoulders and carries them to an enormous opening couple of years in the NHL, something that we don't see out of affiliated teams. Seattle has a huge shoes to fill now because of what Vegas did, and that's a lot to do with what Marc-Andre Fleury does. If we don't ever get to see him play NHL hockey again, it'll be a big shame. I will miss getting to watch him.
Something tells me he's going to Colorado.
I guess we'll only see.
Joe Sakic is very stealthy. So that's my not so hot take of the night. He's going to Colorado. My second topic anyway is we saw a lot of ECHL teams kind of double dip into American Hockey League affiliations last year. Where do you see this one going? Where do you see this happening this year? Do you see a lot of ECHL teams double dipping with, or do you see a lot of American Hockey League teams not having dance partners in the ECHL? If so, how many? And do you see a lot of double dipping going on?
I think this has a huge upside. I mean, we got to see it firsthand with Wichita, having a long-standing relationship with Bakersfield and a contract in place with Bakersfield, yet still being able to have the relationship with Toronto this year, I think was very unique. And those 4 Toronto guys that came down to Wichita not only became instant key pieces on the ice, but the community seemed to really like those guys. Mm-hmm. So I think it sets up a very cool potential. Like we said earlier, there's a chance that there might not be the Newfoundland Growlers this year if they can't find a place to play, and there is potential that they don't play this year. If that's the case, if I was Bruce Ramsey, I'd be on the phone with Toronto seeing if you could renew up a deal, because that was huge for you.
Oh yeah.
I think other teams saw that, and I think other teams are going to try to do that. You don't necessarily need to be locked in with one team. And I think we're going to see that further and further as the AHL starts to really put itself firmly as that developmental place. I still think there's people out there who doubt the AHL and ECHL's potential to be a place where players can grow. And I think the better they do that, the more we might see of a team having 2 affiliates. I think it's still a few years down the line. I think you have to have consistent 32, 32, 32 for every team to have one. And until we hit that number, I think there's going to be a little double dipping here and there. And I think it's a good thing.
I do too. As we get ready to work double overtime here, we'll wrap up your third topic here as we get ready to go into a second period of 3-on-3 OT.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the biggest winners and losers of the NHL free agency. I know this is an ECHL podcast, but I think there are some things happening up there that could potentially find their way back down here, and I think it's something that's worth talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to be a homer here, but I think Philadelphia has put themselves in the winner conversation for the NHL free agency. Chuck Fletcher has proven to Philly fans who had a lot of doubt with GMs after having Hacksaw for so long that this is a guy who means business. You take out Phil Myers, Nolan Patrick, Jacob Voracek, Sean Gossesbear, Brian Elliott, and Robert Haig, and you get to bring in Ryan Elias, Rasmus Ristolainen, Keith Yandel, Cam Atkinson, Martin Jones, Nate Thompson, re-sign Sam Marin. That's a clear better team than took the ice last year. And last week, Chuck Fletcher said by next Wednesday, this team will be significantly better. He did that. My other winner, Boston. They brought in Linus Ullmark, who I think is going to be a very key part in order to get Rosk out to get his surgery that he needs. It was talked about that he was going to need surgery, but he was trying to hold off because they didn't really have an extra goalie. I think Ullmark gives Boston the capability to let him get his surgery, get himself healthy, and not rush him back. I think it's helpful that they were able to re-sign Taylor Hall. Nick Fogliano and Eric Haula bring enormous depth to an already deep Boston team. And it sounds like they still have talks to bring back David Krejci, who would be another great asset for them. I think Boston is in a very good point to have success next year. Obviously, we go back to the original divisions or the normal divisions. So they're going to have to deal with Toronto and Tampa Bay and maybe even Florida. So they've put themselves in a place where they could be very good. As for my losers, the first one's Carolina. I don't understand what's going on in Carolina. First, they signed troublemaker Tony DeAngelo. The Rangers had said that he was a problem in the locker room. A lot of people were unsure. They bring on Tony DeAngelo, yet they do not offer Dougie Hamilton enough money, so he doesn't come back. They would not pay Alex Nedeljkovic or Peter Mrazek enough money to come back in goal, but somehow they brought in Freddie Anderson. Toronto signed Peter Mrazek, and they signed Freddie Anderson. I don't understand how you don't pay Nedeljkovic or Mrazek enough, yet you paid Anderson and Antti Rana comes in. Mm-hmm. It's going to be strange there in Carolina. They did get to trade for Ethan Bear out of Edmonton, and I think that was a huge pickup for them. It will be interesting to see what Carolina does in the next couple of days and weeks of free agency to start building around what seemed like a team that was short on money. And then my second and last loser was Colorado. In the huge fight back and forth between them and Gabriel Landeskog, they lost out on Philip Grubauer, who signed with the Kraken. So they were now out of a goalie number one, and they ended up trading a first-round pick to Arizona to bring in Darcy Kemper. I think Kemper's a really good Tendy, obviously not a Philip Grubauer, but a guy that Colorado could have some success. But you spent so much time focusing on that Landeskog, it kind of seemed like Grubauer slipped from under their skin, and that's what puts them in the loser category for me.
I will go with Tampa Bay, and I completely agree with you on Colorado being so laser focused on Landeskog that it cost them a netminder. Tampa Bay is my clear winner in NHL free agency. And the way that I explained this to you guys in our internal chat the other day is that Julien Brisebois is playing chess when the rest of the NHL general managers are playing checkers. There, he massaged the long-term injury cap just enough to bring back I don't know. They brought back it's not Kuznetsov. It's one of those Ovs. But anyway,
Kucherov.
Huh?
Kucherov.
Thank you. I knew it was one of the Ovs. But anyway, sorry to all the Russians. But bring back Kucherov at the start of the playoffs, and all he does is go get 30 points in the playoffs, and was in the conversation for Conn Smythe Award winner. You say that you're going to have that this team isn't going to be back next year. You go back and re-sign Braden Point. You bring in Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. You bring in other players. Andre Schuster is going to start the season in Syracuse. He's going to end up in Tampa Bay at some point. Like, Julien Brisebois is playing chess with the cap. Everybody else is playing checkers. And right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are your odds-on favorite to win a third straight Stanley Cup. LA is my other big winner. I love what Rob Blake is doing out there in Los Angeles. He's drafting really well. And that Ontario Reign team that feeds into the LA Kings organization is really, really good.
Very good.
So the Kings are going to be really good for a very long time. They're managing the cap really well. The addition of Philip Deneau from Montreal is going to be a really big piece for that club moving forward. You're aging out on Anze Kopitar, and you're aging out Drew Doughty and Dustin Brown. That money will come up here in the next few years. The LA Kings are going to be a Western Conference power for years to come, and it's not a matter of if, but when. The loser side for me, the Edmonton Oilers, you bring in all of these players, and you still have the same two goaltenders you had the year before who were sieves. Mike Smith is older than dirt. Mike Smith was playing goal in the NHL in the first National Hockey League game ever, I'm pretty sure. and Koskinen is so hot and cold. To not go out and get a goaltender, but fill all of your other needs is that's a big loss for me if I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. And then obviously, probably one of the biggest losers, if not of free agency, but the entire sports year, is what happened in Montreal on Friday night with the draft pick there of the player who I won't name, with the 30th pick in the NHL entry draft. The hockey, we could do another hour and a half on the hockey culture, and I feel like that the pick by Montreal just reaffirmed that hockey culture of the good old boys, and that's a horrible look for the Montreal Canadiens. They made it worse by having a press conference, by sending out a release on the opening day of free agency that said, oh, by the way, this guy's not going to be in any of our development camp, nor is he going to be in the main camp at the beginning of the year. And then they rolled out Jeff Molson for a pick your own media conference there. And then they chased that with Mark Bergevin. It was just a debacle from Jump Street for the Montreal Canadiens. They could not have handled that any worse. And I really hope that player who they drafted, who I still won't name, never sees the light of day in an NHL rink. No matter how much talent he has no business being in this game, period. Thank you very much.
And I think you retweeted something that night that really hit home with me. At Jeff Villette on Twitter is the person that you retweeted, who said, if you immediately have to put out a statement saying why you picked a guy, you probably shouldn't have picked him. Yep. There's a lot of people out there who could fight for both sides of this argument, I'm sure. But for the entire game of hockey, this was a downside in a couple of weeks that were huge for the game of hockey, getting to be the thing people were talking about. And now they're the thing people are talking about, but for the exact wrong reason.
Right. You have, and I don't mean to draw this. I'm going to draw this, and I don't quite know where I'm going with it yet, but follow me here. You have the U.S. gymnastics team coming out of one of the darkest chapters in their history, where they had a guy on staff who was knowingly sexually abusing these young girls, and then you have a guy who just went and took photos and sold them, and like, both of those are really disgraceful, and there's a way to handle that properly and there's a way not. And the way that US gymnastics have handled that in the wake of Larry Nasser is the right way to handle that. They're bringing in the stars that they have cultivated, and they said, you're going to be our next chapter. You're going to tell your story. We're going to do our best to bolster you up. The Montreal Canadiens said, okay, Guy, you tell me your story, and then she's going to tell me her story, and we're going to side with you no matter what. That's just an awful way of looking at it. That's an awful way of doing business, and that's where I'm going with it. Jeff Villette is absolutely right. If you have to send out a press release explaining the draft pick, that was a bad pick to begin with, no matter where it was at. 30, 300, 500, 7,000. Doesn't matter. Awful pick.
Yeah, and I think there's not much more we can say on the topic there. It was just, I was so surprised when I saw that pick come in.
Yeah.
That's probably the last thing I can say on it, is just the kid came out, admitted what he did was wrong, and said, hey, it's not right for me to be in the NHL. The NHL says you have to have a character of this level, and I'm not at that point. And I respect him for doing that. Mm-hmm. And then Montreal went and drafted him, and he still came out with a statement saying, like, thank you to the Montreal Canadiens, but I don't deserve to be here. And right. It's nice to know that his mentality is in that place. And I hope that in the upcoming years, he's able to, if help is what he needs, he can get that, whatever he needs. And as well as the person that's not getting as much talk about it is this woman who the picture was sent out about. She's going to be the one that has to deal with the most of the backfall of it. So I'll tie it to a close with that, is that disappointing that Montreal took that route, and we'll see how that thing goes from there. We'll turn it over to you for your last point on our 3-on-3, though.
This is going to end on a much more upbeat note. And I have to give credit because I listen to NASCAR radio for whatever reason, and probably because I think it makes me feel better about myself. But anyway, so the question of the day that they had was, what was the biggest what if in NASCAR over the last 5 years? And there are a whole lot of really good responses. I'm going to ask you, what is the biggest ECHL what if in the last 5 years?
And that was one, you kind of let me know that we were going to talk about this. So I've spent some time trying to dive into it. And my biggest one is, what if the AHL and NHL didn't trust the ECHL to be affiliates? Because really it's been within the last 5 years that those bonds have really been built together. What if the AHL and NHL never gave the trust to the ECHL to give them a chance to be affiliates, and we were still sitting with the ECHL as an independent league?
Yeah. I mean, that is a really good point. You'd be left with a lot of really good players without a place to play. So I'm glad, affiliated hockey is, I've enjoyed it since the move over from the Central Hockey League. And trust me, there is a clear line of demarcation between non-affiliated hockey and guys playing out the string and just wanting beer money on a Saturday night to kids who want to move up. And that's what the ECHL has. For me, the biggest what if over the last 5 years of the ECHL goes back to a team we talked about earlier in this show, and that is the Colorado Eagles. We talked about it, like they had run the Central Hockey League back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before they moved to the ECHL. It felt like they were putting something really good together up there on the Front Range before they left. I wondered if Aaron Schneekloth and company up there in Colorado would not have been the first three consecutive Kelly Cup champion in league history. That's something Allen tried to do and failed. But I wonder, with the pieces Colorado had, if they weren't going to be the first three-peat winner of the Kelly Cup in league history.
I don't think there's many people out there who think that Colorado team wouldn't have had a shot that next year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think if Colorado was still in it, the Mountain Division would be even more impossible for Wichita to win. Sorry, that's the homer in me, wishing that the
Right.
Mountain Division was this much simpler for Wichita. Having to bring Idaho back in next year hurts.
Right.
But this is a Colorado team that no matter where they're at, they're finding ways to win. Even in the AHL, they compete at a high level. They're in a really tough division there too. That Pacific Division is stacked. Henderson came in and just dropped it. I mean, that Henderson team, the whole Vegas organization was doing stuff right. They drafted really well in the expansion draft to a win now, and their drafting in the NHL draft has been phenomenal, filling their farm team. That is the way you run a franchise. Of course, they're only a couple of years in, but Henderson is going to be a team that, like we worry about a lot, Bakersfield is going to have to fight for years to come.
Right. Yeah. And 9 teams in that Pacific Division will play. Like, man, that's its own league out there.
You've got Abbotsville out there kind of too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's out there now as well. So that for me is the biggest what if in the ECHL over the last 5 years. For me, it would have been nice to see Toledo get their first league championship. It kind of cement them as a prominent league power. They've been there all the time. But I like to watch winners keep winning. To me, I like the chase of the high. So that for me is why I went with Colorado.
I like that one. And I think the ECHL is in a unreal place for this next year.
Oh yeah.
It is going to be so cool to see full arenas and an ECHL title up for grabs between a bunch of teams that are going to put a lot on the line to win it all. You get to go back to the original divisions. I guarantee you Florida's happy that they don't have to fight Indy for a chance into the final again. They're not going to have a complaint there. It's going to be an unreal year in the ECHL. Even though there's been a lot of talent that's gone off to Europe so far, you've got a lot more affiliations that are going to be a little more ready to help. I think it was last year was a hard year with the taxi squads getting kind of pushed out. The ECHL is going to get to see some of that talent again. Buckle your seatbelts here in the next couple of weeks, because free agency in the ECHL is going to pick up, get to a good point, and before we know it, we're going to be at opening night.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait.
Well, we are so incredibly happy that you took the time to stop by. If you're here joining us now live, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, we want to give our greatest thanks to David Fine, who took the time out of his evening to come speak with us about what's to come in Coralville, Iowa, with the Iowa Heartlanders. We want to remind you that if you're listening to this, you got to send us your SEC teams. We're eager to hear what everybody else thinks. I think there's a lot of interpretation up for that. So for Matthew Harding, I'm Matthew Will. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will be back in just about 1 month's time for another episode of the Three Periods Pod, where we will kind of break down what's happened so far in free agency here in the ECHL and get you set for just a few weeks away from hockey at that point.
All right. Sounds good. See you later, everybody. Thanks very much for watching and listening. We'll talk to you on the other side.
Have a good one.
You've been listening to the Three Periods Podcast. Do you have a topic you'd like discussed? Hit us up on Twitter at 3periodspod with the hashtag TPP on FPH. And for the latest news on the ECHL and minor league hockey, visit fieldpasshockey.com.
They're going